Hello, friends. Welcome to a very special episode of, I was going to say Archaeologists in Quarantine, but it's not. It's a Great British Dig kind of backstage goss. Oh no. Remember how I said not to have a YouTube link on, and I just did that. So apologies for my viewers if you had a little delay. As I was saying, we are with the Great British Dig, Lead Archaeologists, Archaeological Contractors, and Post-Excavation Archaeologists as well. We were both on screen and off screen. So let's take it away. First of all, of course, my name is Natasha. Nice to meet you all in case you haven't met me before. And Chloe, nice to meet you. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Chloe Duckworth. I present the Great British Dig along with Natasha, and I'm a lecturer in archaeology, naturally, at Newcastle University.
And let's go with Marcus next.
Hi, yeah, I'm Marcus, and I work in sort of digital heritage and 3D reconstruction for archaeology. I've been working in archaeology since the 90s. So, quite a few years now, so yes.
And we then are joined with Solstice Heritage, which is run by Jim and Chris. So Jim and Chris, please introduce yourself.
I'll go first. Yeah, I'm Jim Brightman. I'm a professional archaeologist, have been for some years now. And so Chris and I run Solstice Heritage, and we were the behind the scenes archaeologists. Although you will have probably seen us on the episode in our dapper green t-shirts, carrying finds trays around and digging holes and things. We weren't deemed attractive enough for being on camera, so.
And I'm Chris, as Jim said. I work for Solstice Heritage, but also, as well as the off-screen sort of stuff, we did a lot of the site management and the recording and stuff like that to support the on-screen crew.
So we all met I met you all, I think, on the first day of the dig / filming. Did you guys turn up one day before, if memory serves, just to lay out the trenches? I can't remember.
We did a bit of a recce, certainly. We'd been involved before filming started, so we'd been involved in pre-production, working with all the production crew. So part of our job was also looking for sites right the way back to then. And so we'd actually brought Benwell to the production team as a potential site that could be dug. Chris has dug up umpteen bits of Hadrian's Wall in the past, in his past life as a commercial archaeologist. And it seemed like a good site. So we already knew the site. We got there a little bit early. We recce'd it, and then we were there with spades and shovels and equipment ready for you lot to actually finish with filming the intros.
Yeah, so it was a really interesting experience, because I just remembered, like, for example, with Chloe, you and I were together, and we were like, okay, we have all these doors to knock on. Let's not get anyone slamming them in our face. But it was such an experience, and I must admit, it's definitely one of those moments where I was like, okay, I'm literally going to be knocking on someone's door and asking, can we dig in your garden? And they're going to be filming our reactions. And what if people say no to us and they're really rude?
I think when we were doing it, it comes across in the show, this kind of, I'm almost bobbing up and down every time I'm doing this. It's great though, isn't it? Because you don't know who's going to answer the door, and you don't know what their story is going to be. And they often say, I mean, in the Benwell episode, a couple of people said to us, well, actually, you know, we were aware that there was some archaeology here. We know there's a thing, you know, in the fence. But one family said they moved into the area because when they were looking at houses, they knew about the history under that one. And that was what made them kind of make that final choice on that house. So how lovely is that? Because then not only did they get the house because of the history around it, but they got to see a bit more of the history through the show as well.
Definitely. I remember I was with you for that one, and I think that's probably why most of them moved in, because they were every single person we met was so interested in the history of that site. And there is a scene, I think, one of the beginning scenes where they were actually within a gated area. And that's what a lot of the residents always said, that when they saw that, they were like, we have to live here. But others had lived there for, 60 years. So it was a lovely contrast to see. What are some of your most memorable experiences from the dig? Oh, it's a hard one, isn't it? Okay, how about on camera, that were seen on camera, and then we can say a few that were off camera.
Oh, I love the children. The children are great. And, I think those stories came through on the show as well. But what maybe didn't come through so much is how difficult it is to actually film children. Because, of course, they were really, really, and they'd be really excited, and they'd be running around the trench, and we'd say, oh, come in here, you can come over here. And, we'd give them a disinfected trowel through their parents and say they can have a dig around here. And it'd all be amazing. And then the camera crew would catch on, and they'd turn up. And at that point, the kid would be like, oh, kind of bored now. So we had so many moments like that. But they were so keen. And that's where it is for me. And I don't want to come across as kind of a cult leader, but I love the idea of getting the next generation indoctrinated into how brilliant history and archaeology are. And archaeology speaks to children because they don't need to learn to read before they can understand it. So even from a really young age, you can engage with it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Was it Thomas, the young lad?
Yeah, Tom.
He was brilliant, and we've had independent feedback from. We're fortunate to do quite a lot of community archaeology projects, not on camera, but so we've had people emailing us in the last few days, and quite a few of them have been like, "Wasn't it great seeing that young Thomas lad?" And it was. It's about have the children engaged with it, and I've always said about sort of on previous community digs. For kids, like finding rocks and worms, they treat that as treasure. The level of enthusiasm they bring to it is just brilliant. So yeah, really glad the show captured it. I really am.
I think for me, it's actually linked to everything that Chloe and Jim have just said, but we were so lucky to do the trampoline trench, which is Tom's trampoline trench. And lifting Tom's trampoline out of the way and digging down less than a foot beneath his trampoline that was sunk into the garden by his dad, and coming out with a Roman building as part of the vicus. And within that, a couple more than one coin. I think one coin made it onto the show, but actually, in fact, there was more than one. And that was just not only the most magical thing for him, but also just the most incredible illustration, I think, of what the show is about and can do, but also what archaeology is about as well, and also a fantastic sort of illustration for us as well in terms of getting people to appreciate that archaeology isn't something that necessarily is deeply buried and it's and is far away, but it's close to the surface. It can be close to the surface. It can be around you, next to you, can be sticking up out of the ground, and all sorts of stuff. So it's for me, that was probably the best bit. Just you would think that we had made it up. It worked that well, but really didn't.
Yeah. And when we filled that trench back in, we had to be really careful to recreate the little bowl underneath his trampoline so he didn't break his ankles when he jumped on it. It was the worst backfilling job we've ever had to do.
Yeah.
I still can't get over that garden, because I can't remember if we actually get to see it in shot, actually. Literally what Chris just said is this kid has been jumping up and down, having a whale of a time, and directly underneath the trampoline was that. I still can't believe it.
Yeah, jumping up and down on a Roman building. It's outrageous.
Literally.
I was quite overjoyed to see that one of the shots that made it into the press was, I think it was Chris, inside that circular, the hole made by the trampoline, within which was a trench, a nice neat trench. But yeah, it looked, Chris, like you just made yourself a big circular trench, like some kind of whimsical fool.
Yes, it was nice. It made me look like I'd done some work, which was great. Yeah. And it did make us look like we've just, for no reason other than to be on telly, dug the strangest and most unusual archaeological trench ever with a never-ending section. Yeah.
And you fitted in it perfectly. It's like a trilobite. It was brilliant. Or ammonite, whichever the circular one is.
There was a scene in that I loved where Richard is explaining the course of the walls, and he's just walking around the trench as well. It's lovely, this whole sort of circular trench thing.
I do love that scene actually, when he's trying to explain so you can like visualize what was going on there. Yeah, it was brilliant. I wish I was there just to watch it happen as well, because it must have been so fun. Because it's one of those things, like when we're talking on camera, half the time we don't realize we're doing it. And then all of a sudden we're talking on camera, wait a minute, have I said the right thing? Have I said the right dates? And then you just have to push that all aside and just keep giving the message that you want to give, until you get that email to say that the show's airing. And then you're like, oh no, what did I say?
I think it's quite terrifying for archaeologists, because we often say things in the field. It's an ongoing process. So interpretation starts at the trowel's edge. So you remove the turf, you deturf something, and you start to trowel back, and immediately, or mattock back, immediately you're looking for some change, for some feature, and as soon as you see it, you have to make an interpretation, because how do I now dig it? So we're constantly interpreting, but we're also constantly reinterpreting, and it's really scary when there's a camera on you, because you're going to say something in front of the camera, but then what if you reinterpret it later? And I think it takes a lot to get used to the fact that you just have to relax into that and let yourself say something that you may disagree with even 15 minutes later.
Sorry to interrupt. I've just noticed that a certain Terry Frame has slid into the YouTube chat.
Oh,
we really should shout out the amount of work he did in that trampoline trench.
Yeah, he did. I do have a photo for you, Terry. You need to maybe try to email me somehow. And I've got some really cool photos of you in there, actually. Such a good trench. I've got one of you just being like this with it. Like, look at my trench. It was great. I love it. But by the way, I think Terry is very lucky. So we just need to carry him with us wherever we go.
Our lucky Terry. Yeah.
Because he just finds
everything. Trench you want to find stuff in and put Terry in it.
Yeah.
You will find it.
At the end, we were just calling him Hollywood.
What I should say is, for our viewers, it is a Q&A. So if you have any questions for us, put them in the little chat box or in the comments section. Either way, we'll be able to read them for you. So please ask away. But be nice to us. But we wouldn't mind some technical questions. We'll be able to hopefully give you a sound. Oh, Terry's just said, excellent, I'm all for it. Good to know, Terry. If we don't find anything in the future, we'll be like, okay, radio call. Terry, we need you. Okay, let's see what's going on. So we had this question from Malcolm. Now, we have addressed this before, but I think it might have been on Twitter. So let's do it on here as well. Malcolm has asked a great question, and that is, did you have to get scheduled monument consent or any other permissions other than that of the homeowners? Now, that's a great question. Should we go Jim or Chris, maybe, if you could answer that, please?
Yeah. Do you want to?
Yeah.
You led on this site, so with that stuff, so yeah.
Pick up that in relation to Benwell. Actually, there are bits of, obviously, there are lots and lots of bits of Hadrian's Wall that are scheduled. There are lots of bits, well, there are other bits also of Benwell Roman Fort that are scheduled. In terms of actually the gardens, people's gardens, those bits that lie over the top of the fort are not scheduled. So they're not protected in law in that way. So for the excavations that we did at Benwell, we didn't need scheduled monument consent. Saying that, we did engage with the local authority archaeology team anyway, as a matter of course, and we've done that for all the programs. But we also engaged as well with Historic England and the inspector for the wall itself, actually. You see him on the program, actually, in point of fact. Don is involved in the Great British Dig, but we engaged with Historic England and with the local authority archaeology team, and we worked with them to come up with a method statement, really, or a method for doing the work, which has research questions within it. So although we didn't need scheduled monument consent, we went through a process of producing a proper archaeological method and set of research questions not just for TV, actually in terms of trying to answer questions about the site, but also I think one of the most important things as well was actually for us in consultation with those curators that we engaged with, actually seeking to make a contribution to the site. And in one of the biggest contributions I think we've made across that site was understanding what survives within people's gardens, because the previous work that has been done at that site was actually done before those houses were built, in the areas anyway that we were looking at. And so the ability to actually look at what remains now after that site has been covered with houses and after people have been planting their rose bushes in there for 70 years or more.
More like 90 now.
More like
80 or
90.
90 years, yeah.
Yeah. So actually looking at what survives, and also that helps both the local authority archaeological team, but also Historic England, to actually conserve those remains into the future. So from that point of view, that although we did dig up some of them and remove a little bit of the archaeology, actually we've made a far greater contribution really by removing just a little bit to understand what's there. We've made a greater contribution to kind of conserving the whole.
It's really important. We've all felt it's really important when we're making the show that we're very, very considerate of not doing anything for the sake of making TV, solely for the sake of making TV. So it has to be attached to proper research questions. It has to be attached to concerns about heritage and how we protect the past that we have in this country as well. So to move away from the more serious note, Chris, I do that thing as well, where I still think we're in the year 2000. So like 1930, that's 70 years ago. And I'm pretty sure that Chris, Jim and I are all the same age.
Yeah.
I think we're all the same age. So yeah, I mean, I know I look good, right? But but yeah, I do that. I forget that the past 20 years has happened. Sorry to call you out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to add that for me, it was so important to know that, yes, we are filming, but to know that every single thing that we excavated, everything that we touched, the artifacts were all dealt with correctly. Because that would have always been in the back of my head. I think if Solstice Heritage were not there, that literally would always in the back of my head, and I probably would have been stressed the whole time, because when people are coming in and out, you want to make sure that the finds are in the correct context. So for those of you who may not know, anything that we do find has a number, if you like. So we need to know where everything comes from. Otherwise, it becomes unstratified, and that's not great. We like to know where everything comes from. So that was like, I remember there are a couple of clips of me being like, okay, find tray, put it into finds tray. And I was like, why am I saying it 2 times? Like, obviously it's in the back of my head. Like, and then I'm just like always just like concerned with making sure it goes in the bucket or, the bag. And I'm just like, it's so funny that they had to show these clips of me when I'm just like constantly being like, where are they? Are they in the right place? Okay, good. I can relax now, breathe. But I must admit, it was so great to be a part of a community excavation. It's something I personally have missed and have always wanted to do. And whenever I get the chance, I'm just it's so fulfilling. And it makes you realize how important our work is. So for example, Marcus, you were making those models, and how was the interaction of you being able to show, which didn't always make the show, unfortunately. For example, you had that fragment of Matarium, and then you actually created what it could have looked like, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So,
how was that?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things, I suppose, for me, when I first come on a project like this or on one of the shows, is I come in a little bit later. So you already started your trenches because you haven't found anything for me to deal with, on the first day. And then I don't really know what's going to happen. I know you guys don't know what you're going to find, but I'm expected to make something. So you'll bring me small pieces of evidence and say, like, can you build this? On the production team, I remember that wasn't this episode, but they brought me a small piece of window lead and said, can you build a stained glass window out of this for the priory? And I said, probably not. So we always sort of like think, well, I really hope that you find something interesting that I can actually work with. Now, there were some great pieces of pottery, some diagnostic pottery I had. at Benwell. So those were really well. And then roof tile again, we can reconstruct the roof tile from it. But then I think in the show, I know in the show that Hugh makes a joke about my extrapolation from roof tile fragment to barracks block. But I assure you that there's more evidence than just the roof tile. So it's not just a case that, my magic camera and computer can reconstruct the type of building from the roof tile. There's all the archaeological evidence. I mean, I think it's in Paula's garden, isn't it? That the barrack blocks actually, where your trenches actually intersect it. And we have some plans from the 30s, etc. And then we have other evidence. So we have evidence from other forts. So we get an idea of the shape and the layout. And so it's really about finding evidence on site for that is really nice, and then we can actually then draw in loads of archaeological research that's been going on over years, and I suppose that's one of the great things about the archaeological record and recording it properly, is that later on down the line people will be able to pull that information into their excavations and their reports and their kind of interpretation of the site. So it's really important to actually archive all that information too. So that's basically the kind of scenario that I'm putting.
So you're saying you don't make it up? That's the headline? Yeah.
I'm saying I don't make it up. I try not to make it up. There has to. I try to have a reason for everything that exists in the reconstruction. I need to be able to justify it. I am asked to do quite a few magical things, which might be a bit beyond my skills with the evidence that we have. But most of the stuff that we've done, we can back it up with evidence. Yeah.
And Marcus, for you, how was it to be able to show that to the public, to the community? How was that for you?
Yeah, it's pretty good, because one thing about working on the show is I previously mentioned is people's enthusiasm. I mean, not the production crew, the archaeologists, and members of the public. So they're all really enthusiastic. I mean, which is really good, because it means that what is sometimes is reasonably complex, I suppose, some of the stuff that we do, but I find that because they've got the enthusiasm, they're really good listeners, and they really pick it up, and they really understand. They sort of understand the importance of the evidence and how it all comes in, and then basically showing someone a reconstructed pot from a fragment that came from their garden. Yeah, that's quite special. I know, and they're always quite well received, and it's a bit of a wow factor for them sometimes. So they do use the word wow, which is great, because not many people do that in my normal day job. Oh, could it be a bit better? I quite like sharing these things to the public, because they encourage me to keep going.
Let's do a couple of shout outs for those who are commenting in the chat box. Hello to Emily, Theatre of War, hey Adam, The Real Deal, hey Lewis, David Conley, hey David. David is actually from Badger, which is British Archaeological Job Resources. I've actually never had to say it out loud. So hey David. We have Elma, Malcolm, let's see who else, Angelina, hey Angelina. Of course, Terry, Medievalists.
Hi, Terry.
Nigel, Past Preservers, Betsy. Hello, thank you all for your comments and questions. Let's go with Adam from Theatre of War, who asked, how many meters did you have to dig down before finding any initial finds?
I'm going to start with this one, because I love that question, because it really depends on the site, but even what is a site, even between different gardens in the Benwell episode that's just gone out, as I think Chris and Jim said, we found stuff under that trampoline very close to the surface. In other places, not so much. It depends on what we call site formation processes, and how basically how the layers have built up in the ground over time, and that could be due to erosion, it could be due to people building on things, people knocking things down and then leveling the floor. You know, there's so much that goes on. So sometimes archaeology can be right up at the surface, but there's just no guarantee that that's going to be the case, and there's no guarantee that you've got a specific depth for a particular time period. So it's genuinely the case that when we go in and we do that first digging down, we don't know what we're going to get. And in Terry's trench, in the circular trench, the magical trench, you know, there was stuff just popping up straight away.
Yeah, it was like day one Roman in the Terry's trench, and then the trench at the bottom where I think there's footage of you, Chloe, with the clay pipe in the show. That was day 3 or 4, and we were still mattocking 1.5 meters through Victorian made ground, because it's at the bottom of the estate, and the amount of material that had sort of slumped down the slope or been thrown down the slope during when they built the houses. Yeah, the difference was massive. It really was on that site.
In regards, in case you don't remember, that's also the same trench that got that bit of Samian ware. Yeah. So how significant is Samian ware in this area? Because I don't think we really touched upon that too much, did we, in the show? I'm trying to remember the edit. Is it quite rare to find Samian ware in this part, or? It's
relative, well, because there's so many settlements around here, there is quite a decent amount of Samian ware from the wall, the towns that serve the forts, on the wall and on the Steingate line, which is the line of forts that Vinderlander's on, that was in the show. It's like a couple of miles back off the wall line. But it's high status, and it is the quintessential high status Roman find. Gaulish Samian ware, it's got that characteristic red slip, the way it's made like an impressed mold with that decoration. Like Roman pottery specialists love it because it's very easy to identify, like sometimes down to the pottery and individual potter who made it. It's such a characteristic Roman thing that it's something you always want to find on a Roman site, because it gives you that depth of information. So not super rare, but a great find, I think, is probably what I'd say.
I think it's also worth saying, it's for archaeologists as well. It's a really, really love, and for all the guys in the community that we were working with, it's a great find because it comes out of the ground looking as new as the day it went in. Often it's so well made that it's one of those crisp finds that you can insert. I suppose archaeology is about touching the past, and with Samian ware, it's great because you're picking something up that looks the same to you as it did to the person who dropped it. So in that sense, it's really, really, it is a lovely find, from quite apart from how sort of interesting it is for the nerdy people who like Roman pot. It's so have I said that? Oh dear. But
just for anyone who's not in the profession, we call them sherd nerds, you know, because the fragments of pottery are called sherds. So a bit of technical language for you there. We've got sherd nerds.
Yeah. Quite apart from the sherd nerds, it's a really, really fantastic find for engaging people, a bit like Marcus was talking about. It's being able to show someone something that puts them in the past.
I feel this way, I must say, I feel this way about Roman glass as well. And I've got to put my hands up here because I am, like, glass is my area of archaeology. So obviously I think it's really amazing. But Roman glass was made of this amazing composition. So when you get it out of the ground, and we had a bit in this show, it's like, it's pristine. It's like it was made yesterday. It hasn't, the medieval glass, different composition, different ingredients went into it. It corrodes in the soil. So one of the things I always do with students is I put all the glass out when they're first starting out. I put all the glass out and I say, well, put this in order of how old you think it is. And they always think the Roman stuff's more recent because it looks so pristine. And it just shocks you, doesn't it? It makes you remember, when I find this tatty old bit of whatnot and it's all messy and, you know, like in pieces and covered in dirt, that actually at one point this was something pristine and shining, and it was, you know, in many cases in terms of like Samian ware and stuff, you know, it was someone's pride and joy, wasn't it? So it was something that really gives you this sense that, yes, we're connecting with the past, but we have to remember that this is the past after 2,000 years of being buried. And then you get that idea when you pull out a piece of bright orange Samian ware, it pops back, doesn't it, to the
there's such immediacy to it. It's fabulous stuff. It really, the Romans knew what they were doing, didn't they? Yeah.
They were annoyingly good at stuff. Like I find the Romans annoying because I've always tried to avoid them, and then I always end up studying them because, I mean, they just did cool stuff.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was, but some famous archaeologist called them fascists in skirts. And well, just,
I mean, yes, like if you think about what they were like, what they were an empire that just went and decimated, well, not decimated, but went and destroyed vast swathes of the world. But
made really good glass.
And yet the glass is so pretty. Yeah, it's not a great thing when you think about it that way. I think you've just ruined the Romans for me.
Sorry. I'm not going to get invited back, am I? No.
Hey, we have another 3 episodes airing, so don't worry. Which, by the way, in case you don't know, we will be doing this every Saturday at 5 o'clock following the show, giving like the back scenes, post-ex as well. And what we should say, there was a question, apologies, I can't find it now, but there was a question that popped up regarding what happens next, in the sense of, can the viewers actually be able to access the report, post-excavation report? Will you have a monograph, for example, or some sort of publication?
We won't be, I don't think there's a plan to do a full monograph, but linking to what Chris said earlier, we committed, when we do all the archaeology properly with the method statement agreed by everyone, the local authority, we commit to make sure that everything is going to be written up, published to recognised industry standards. So we are currently in the process of producing reports, standalone reports for each one of the 4 sites that the 4 episodes are on. Currently, we're just waiting on some specialists, like the pottery specialists looking at the Roman pottery, or for next week, I'm sure everyone's seen the teaser, the human bone specialists looking at the human bone. So once all that's back, we collate it with all of the recording we did in the field, and it will be published to standards that we made available, free digital download, and it'll be lodged with the relevant local authorities as well. So it should be hopefully very accessible, and because we're all kind of online a lot and have our own websites, we can do multiple links from multiple places to make sure that people can get hold of those.
Yeah, and I think it raises a really important point as well, doesn't it, what you were saying, Jim, because it's not always apparent how much of archaeology is in what we call post-ex, which is, after the excavation. So much of the resources and the time of archaeology is that side of it. So the digging's really exciting, and you're getting stuff out and you don't know what's going to happen. But actually, you never reconstruct the full picture until it's been through all those other processes and specialists have seen it. And so it takes time and it takes money after the actual moment of the dig itself to get all that stuff out there to people.
Yeah. 100%.
It's definitely, there's so many, archaeology is multidisciplinary. There are so many areas that people do not really get to know. So I was actually quite happy to see all the different specialists in the show. I really, it was so nice. And for example, Marcus, I would never be able to see what you did in what I do. I would never be able to get to see that. If I'm lucky, I'll see that on Sketchfab, which is like a free resource where you can kind of see stuff online of models. That's it. I'm not going to see somebody from a fragment of pottery that we've pulled out the trench. Literally a day later, I can actually see a 3D model of it. It never happened. So for me, it was like really exciting to see that. And then to show it to the public was amazing. And there's even something that Frances mentions, which, by the way, unfortunately, Frances couldn't make it today. And we do have a little chat with her earlier, which I will share the screen in a moment or two. I'll just quickly ask a few more questions and I'll share the screen. And then we're going to talk a bit more about Hadrian's Wall. It's a lovely little treat for everyone. We'll be inviting Dr. Rob Collins, who works on some of the heritage projects regarding Hadrian's Wall. And it's really exciting. And yeah, I'm actually looking forward to that part as well. And then we can grill him about Hadrian's Wall. We can ask him loads of questions. Okay, I'll quickly see a few more questions before we show you Frances.
I've seen loads of good questions coming in. I don't know if we're going to have time to answer them all, but I know there's some really great ones coming in.
Let's quickly answer this one, and then it might be quite good then to talk to Frances, because we can talk about the finds a little bit. Let's go with the TV show. Is it a TV show? I feel kind of strange saying TV show. Is it a documentary? I don't know what the technical term is for what we were a part of, because it was filming us at work. But then it was like,
I think it's a TV show, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we've said, we mentioned it right at the start, but we should shout out the production company who put this together, the actual TV crew behind the scenes. They had this vision originally, and we have all come on board, and it's testament the fact that their vision has worked. It looks great. It's been really well received so far, and they're the ones who initially believed in it and sort of fought to get it made. So I'm so happy for them, and we talked to them a bit when we're doing the post-ex work. But yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and also, like, the
production company is Strawberry Blonde, and we can put links in the description below. Please, Chloe.
I mean, what really impressed me about working with them is that, you know, we came back to them and we said, well, archaeologists do it this way. They said, well, why? And we explained it, and they listened, and they worked with that, and they respected that we understand our own profession. And I genuinely think that's why the show has worked, and I do think it's worked, but I think it's worked because they listened and they understood that we knew what archaeology was, and I think that's a rare thing, and I'm very, very grateful to them for doing that, really.
We actually did have a question from Alex, which is kind of what we're just speaking about now. So what did everyone think about the show, how it was portrayed, and how was your expectations to then watching it? How was that? Because obviously we're all seeing ourselves on screen. You know, we filmed this in September, October, pre-lockdown, during social distancing. So how was that experience for you all? Let's go with Marcus.
All right, go with me. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Because I did the pilot one as well, and it had the social distancing thing. I thought it was, it was much more difficult, I think, to basically make the show. But obviously, I think it's a great success. I mean, I watched it and I thought, wow, you can't really tell, I mean, you can if you look, because people aren't standing together and there's not like, but it still doesn't really affect the message or the enjoyment of the show. It was different to work in that kind of environment, and because I think we when we were in Nottingham changed tiers halfway through the filming, which was like, oh, okay. So yeah, I think it's a great success, given the restrictions that everyone had to go through. I just think it's what are not related to the COVID restrictions stuff, but I guess one of the main things I feel, and I think you touched on it before, is basically, do I say something stupid on camera? Have they left it in? because that's one of the things, because I didn't get to see any of it, to proof any of it, or so when it goes out live, that's when I get to see what I've done. And I also did the graphics as well, so the kind of like forts popping up on the map and things like that. So I get to see those, but I don't know how that all fits in with the final production. I just kind of do what they ask me, and on that sense, and then just hand it over. So it's really good to see everything pulled together to make what is like a really nice, coherent show. And I don't know how they do it, but they're really good at it. So yeah. That was my feeling when I saw it. So.
And how about Solstice? How was it watching it, and then being a part of it, and then watching it on screen and seeing yourselves as well, and especially Jim with that finds tray?
Yeah, carrying the same finds tray for the entire week, just walking around the estate. Yeah.
Well, it's important to look busy, isn't it?
Yeah. I needed to figure out something, or else people would make me dig holes. So
do you know, it's it's a funny thing, like the whole social distancing thing, because archaeology, commercial archaeology, which, you know, you're all in, and I'm saying so, I'm sitting here as a privileged academic who's been spending the last year working online almost exclusively, but it's carried on throughout the pandemic. So it's part of the construction sector, and the construction has continued, and so archaeology has continued, and so archaeology has had to continue under extremely difficult circumstances, with social distancing in place, with all the additional pressures that puts on. And I just take my hat off to everybody who's involved in that, because it's not a sector, the whole construction sector, including archaeology, it's not a sector that people tend to kind of think of, you know, when they're thanking everyone and talking about who's had to work over this, and talking about, you know, the pressures of working from home, which are real, but all of this stuff as well. And I just think, you know, for me, I had a small taste of that when I came in and made the show, and it was seriously depressing not being able to just chill out and hang out with people after work in a way that we might normally do. But, you know, this has been people's reality for almost a year now, and I'm just, yeah, you guys have done an amazing job, basically.
Yeah. Sorry, go on, Chris.
As from our point of view, I think we, both Jim and I, but also our staff who were involved, the whole team that we brought to work on the Great British Dig, actually really got a lot from it, because actually, from our point of view, it gave back some of that engagement actually with other people. We haven't done, Jim mentioned before, we do a lot of community archaeology as well as commercial archaeology. That, because it's not essential, hasn't happened. And so actually from our team, that opportunity to work with people in the community and on stuff that they cared about and was very local to them was fantastic, because it actually, in a really difficult time, gave back some real person-to-person engagement, which was really, really, I think, really enjoyed and really important for the whole team that we had working on the show.
Agreed. I forgot what I was going to say. I had something to say and it slipped my mind.
I think I interrupted you, so I'm so sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. Oh, actually, yes, it was about commercial archaeology. Thank you. Yeah, I agree, Chloe, what you were saying, by the way. You know, we've been working through it all, and it's been really hard. It's been challenging. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I mean, working in general in a commercial construction setting has its challenges, but with COVID, everything changed. The dynamics of teamwork wasn't there anymore, and those were the things that kind of kept us going, our morale going, when it was hard work that we were doing, and we lost that. So for me, I remember when I was coming to film, it was kind of like a holiday for me, because I was like, wow, like I'm interacting somewhat with people, even if it's from a distance, like I'm interacting with you guys. And it was so nice and so refreshing. And I think all of us just had that extra enthusiasm because of how the year was going. For me, being a part of the Great British Dig was my highlight. It really was, it was so nice to be a part of a community excavation. And to be working with you all was so nice, not to have the pressures that we normally do have on a commercial setting. So that was fantastic. I'd actually like to share right now a clip from a conversation that I had with Frances, who unfortunately couldn't make it today, but she wanted to say hello. It's about 6 minutes long. You know how it is once you start chatting. So I'm going to share the screen. You can meet Frances again. And then we're going to be inviting Dr. Rob Collins, and we'll be talking about Hadrian's Wall. So get your questions ready about Hadrian's Wall as well. And any questions you have for Frances, you can put them in the chat box or the comment section, and we'll get her to answer them towards, I think, mid-March when we go live. We'll ask Frances them then. Okay, so I'm going to quickly just share the screen. And again, questions are welcomed. We will be able to watch them. I should have probably planned this. Oh, there it is. Okay, perfect. So here we go. Dun, dun, dun. I just realized everyone's going to be staring at me now. I can't even see you guys looking at me because I'm like on a different screen right now. Okay, this is, and I did warn everybody who was going to be tuning in today. This is live, so there's no editing involved. Okay, here we go. This should be able to share the screen with you all now. Dun, dun, dun. If you would like to mute yourselves, actually, if that's okay, just in case, that'd be amazing. I'll mute myself as well. Okay, you should be able to hear it now. Can you hear that? No, you can't. Okay, thank you, Marcus. 1 second. Frances will be introducing her like 4 times now. Sorry, Frances, when you watch this back. Sweet. Okay, it's recording now. So, hey, Frances, how are you doing?
Good, thanks. I'm currently sat in my empty house because we're mid-house move, so apologies I can't make you the live thing, but I thought I'd pop in and say hi anyway. Okay.
Well, no, I understand, like, it's just such a, oh, that's my phone, going off. It's such a stressful time at the moment anyway, so it's just so good that we're able to talk at least now before you get back to moving. How's the little one? How is she?
Yeah, causing chaos and carnage. You know, she has all of her toys, but of course she wants the box with the pans in, or the box with the spices in. We had a pile of salt on the carpet yesterday, and then 2 minutes later she found the cat bowl, and yeah. So
I'm trying to remember, when we were filming, how old was she?
She was 11 months, so she's 16 months now. Yeah.
And can she walk? Is it too early to walk?
Yeah, no, yeah, she's been walking, yeah, for quite a while, but yeah, now she's fully confident and running. And our new house, the stairs are shallower than our old house, so she can climb them more easily. Yay! Yeah.
So, so again, most people have just seen you on the episode. I must admit, like, watching it back on Wednesday, it brought back so many memories, like the flashbacks of us finding stuff. Obviously, we were talking, and then the cameras would just pop out of nowhere and start filming our conversations. How did it feel watching it back?
It kind of felt like another lifetime ago, didn't it? You know, it was pre-lockdown 3. We were all socially distanced, and I remember thinking, you know, at the time all the crew had to wear their masks, and we only didn't when we were on camera, so we were still obviously within those restrictions. But it feels like another lifetime ago, because the weather was nice, you know, we were able to get out and about, and it was just really nice to see everybody, because it was such a lovely week, wasn't it? You know, I didn't know, I knew Chloe and Don beforehand, but I hadn't met anybody else from the TV side. I knew quite a few of the diggers from Solstice, but yeah, so it felt like a real treat. You know, it was a week of us getting together, doing some digging, meeting some new people. It was really fun.
It definitely was. I think the highlight for 2020 for me was working on the project. It kind of, I think actually, it probably made it even more special because of what was going on, you know, and just being able to do it. And I think that's why we were so enthused, even more enthused than normally, was because we're just so excited to be doing something in this sort of setting, especially community archaeology.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because everyone else, you know, we've just been so used to having to be on our own, and things being cancelled all the time, hadn't we? You know, I know you're going to talk to Rob Collins and his project. You know, they've had to rethink so much of their, you know, kind of the entire project, and as have loads of community archaeology groups, as of you know, kind of everybody. So yeah, it felt like, you're right, a treat to be doing it. You know, it would have been fun anyway, but it was kind of extra added bonus, wasn't it? Because it was, something so different to what the rest of the year had been like.
I'm trying to remember. I can't decide what my favourite find was, but as you were the finds expert on set and off set, but what was your favourite find out of all, if you can remember?
I think for me, the coin that came from Trampoline Garden, because, you know, you don't get a huge number of coins always. So I remember when I first met Hugh and we were chatting about, you know, we'd get loads of pottery, and you would get loads of pottery and tile, and we'd probably get quite a lot of modern stuff. But I said, you know, it'd be really nice to get some metalwork. And that coin, I think, really shows. You couldn't see anything. You couldn't even see the emperor's head on the obverse, you know, never mind what the reverse pattern was. But because there's been so much study on coins, you know, I can weigh it and I say, this is the denomination that it is. So this is how much someone could have bought, you know, with it. And it's a real thing. We still use coins. And so, you know, the little boy, it could really understand that. And yeah, it was a really cool find. But I also kind of, from my professional side, I was like, oh, my knowledge has meant that we now know more about that coin because I know about coins and I've done work. I really enjoyed that bit of mortario as well. I'm not a pottery specialist. People will tell you you're a small finds or a pottery specialist, but you know, normally. But I was able to get the right identification. I you know, used the magic of my kind of friends and Aniko Hudak. I tweeted her a picture and I said, just to check, I think this is what this is that right? You know, and she confirmed it. And again, it's really good when you get something right, isn't it? It's very satisfying, I think. So yeah, they were my two kind of highlights for different reasons, really.
And actually, for our viewers, it'd be great if you could tell us a bit about yourself professionally. What do you actually do for work? Yeah. Because it's not something we get to see on the show.
No, so in my day job currently, I am collections curator for English Heritage, and I cover Hadrian's Wall in the North East. So that covers sites with collections. There's about 16 sites that have collections that I look after. So Berwick upon Tweed, Ramparts, and Castle and Barracks is my most northerly. Tynemouth Priory is my most easterly, and Carlisle Castle is my most westerly site. But I'm kind of, by training, I'm a Roman small finds specialist, really, and I looked after just the 4 Hadrian's Wall collections that English Heritage looks after, Birdleswood, Househeads, Chesters and Corbridge, before my role expanded. And before that, I worked for the Finds Liaison. I worked as a Finds Liaison Officer for the Portable Antiquity Scheme down in Liverpool and then up in the North East. And then I also did my PhD on the Clayton collection, which is material from Chesters and other parts of Central Hadrian's Wall. So I have done small stints being kind of like a finds person at an excavation, but not anymore. I look at stuff kind of the next stage on. So the material that we found at Benwell will end up going to the Great North Museum, and that would be the stage I would see it if I worked at GNM, which I don't at the moment. Yeah, different one. So I'm the next stage on in that excavation and deposition process.
I think for us, especially, like being a part of the programme, the archaeological works as well, it was so important to have local archaeologists involved because we need that local understanding. Yeah, I've worked across the UK, but for me, it's those unique encounters with local archaeologists that I love the most, because that's when you get to really appreciate something. And, you know, it's just one thing reading about something, excavating it, and then finding out from a local archaeologist who's worked in that region, seen the finds, and you're able to, as you said, for example, with the coin, you're like, straight away, you knew what it was when you saw it, you're like, I think this is, wait a minute. And I remember that. And then I just remember, I think when the cameras came, because I was like, that is really chunky. And I can't believe that's the bit that they show on air, but that's literally what I was thinking, that's a really chunky coin. Like, never seen it.
I think the programme shows really well how archaeology is so collaborative. Like, I'm not a digger, you know, I did 6 months of digging after I graduated from uni because I wanted to make sure I'd done some, so I, you know, understood all the different processes in, you know, kind of archaeology. But that's not what I'm doing. I couldn't now go and supervise a site or anything. That's what you do, you know. I'm also not a surveyor, which is what other people do, or I couldn't do Don's job. I couldn't identify animal bones and seeds and stuff. So we need all of us, don't we, to do the job properly? And I think that's what the programme shows really nicely. Yeah, and it's the best bit about archaeology, isn't it? You get to work with really lovely people.
A sort of massive on-screen live party, great big party.
That will be lovely. Enjoy. I'll be wrangling a screaming toddler whilst you are doing your live stream. So
that's when she can tell us a few things. She can spot dates and stuff for us.
Yeah, she's got a lot of opinions. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye. Sweet. Okay, it's recording now. So hey. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
What is going on with me today? I don't know. I'm just like sharing everyone my desktop, everything. Right, okay. I'm about to let Rob in. Uno momento. I'm quickly just gonna put my headphones in again. Can you all hear me now?
Yes.
Brilliant. Sorry. Considering it's me who does this like all the time, I don't know what is going on today.
I think it's a rule of Zoom. Like every time I'm doing anything in meetings or with students, it just all goes wrong.
Well, it's something more unique and special. I think that I like the fact that I know people are watching us right now, but I can't see them. Okay, so I'm just going to let Rob know that he can come into the room, so he's not going to be expected. First I'd like to say shout outs to David Ian Howe. Hey David, we've got, where did they go? Florida Public Archaeology Network. Hello. If you have any questions for us, please put them in the chat box below. If it's your first time joining us, give us a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification so you know when we come live next week. Yes. And of course, you also have all of our links in the description below, all our websites and social media handles. Okay, let's go. So for our viewers who have just joined, we're going to be now joined by, hopefully I haven't surprised him. We are joined with Dr. Robert Collins from Newcastle University and who is on WallCAP. Hello, thank you for joining us.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Okay, so we're going to probably start getting a few questions about Hadrian's Wall, and we just were hoping that you'd be able to maybe give us a quick insight into it, because we have mentioned it quite a few times already in the stream, but we have to be quite mindful that a lot of people may not have heard of it. And I know we do touch upon it in the actual program, but I'm wondering if you could give us like a quick overview, if that's possible. I mean, it's a beautiful piece of archaeology. If it's possible, just to give like a quick sums up of Hadrian's Wall and your project.
Oh, that's a really dangerous question. You've asked me, Hadrian's Wall expert, to give a concise answer about it, like a open jar, Pandora's box. I'll try though. It's really easy to think of Hadrian's Wall because of its name as just a wall, but really a better description of it is a monumental complex, which is a bit of a focus for a much bigger Roman frontier system and network. So there is a wall, a large mural barrier built in stone, but there's also towers that we call turrets. There are these small fortlets spaced approximately 1 mile called mile castles. And then about every 7 or so miles along its length, there's a larger settlement called a fort, which is where most of the soldiers would be based and live on a daily basis. And that stretches from the east coast of England on the North Sea all the way to the west coast of England on the Irish Sea, across that little narrow neck known as an isthmus, if I can pronounce that right, that roughly runs from the North Sea to the Irish Sea. So in terms of modern geography, from the cities of Newcastle to Carlisle, but actually a bit further east and west from those cities.
Wow.
I hope that's short enough.
No, that was brilliant. I don't know how I would be able to explain it in such a concise way, so thank you for that. What got you so interested in Hadrian's Wall, if I could ask? Like, why Hadrian's Wall? Because, there's so many things that you could study, but it's this. What is for you, if I can? If
Yeah,
there is
what's
one
wrong with
answer.
you, Rob?
What's wrong?
I have a love for Hadrian's Wall, but I'm not in love with Hadrian's Wall. So I think it's important to kind of separate the, those, fascination and interest in it from an obsession. In truth, I came really late to kind of Hadrian's Wall and Roman frontier studies in terms of my career development. I originally thought I would be an archaeologist of early medieval Britain. I really liked kind of the period of the 5th to the 7th centuries. I grew up on stories about King Arthur, and I kind of, when I got old enough, I realized you could actually study that period and learn more about it. I was thrilled. And then when I was doing my master's, my supervisor said, "Oh, why don't you look at Hadrian's Wall? They keep finding stuff from the 5th century." And so I did, and it was like a real light bulb moment for me of like, oh, this is awesome. And it was kind of everything I loved throughout my lifetime. When we studied history, it was frontier societies, kind of I'm particularly interested in the late Roman period. So like you've got the collapse of a complex society, the end of the Western Roman Empire, soldiers, because I'm a bit of a boy, I like the military stuff, but also those circumstances of a changing society. So one kind of civilization is ending, so to speak, and new ones are emerging and forming. And it was everything I loved about history all in one place.
I've been able to walk a part of the wall. I've not been able to do the whole, or I don't know how long that would take me. I know they say 4 days, but I know it's not going to take me 4 days. It'll take me like double the amount of time.
It usually takes archaeologists longer because they like to stop and look at things.
Exactly. It's one of those things. I mean, Chris, you mentioned that you worked on Hadrian's Wall.
Yeah.
How was that to be able to work on it? I mean, it's such a famous part of history.
It's brilliant. I think for a commercial archaeologist based in the northeast of England, it's a fantastic source of work because, as Rob says, it cuts across the whole country, and that means all the roads have got to get across it, all the water pipes have got to get across it. So from our point of view, those interactions are when commercial archaeologists get involved in working on, but also academic archaeologists and curators get involved at those points as well, in terms of helping all of the sort of modern stuff that's got to move backwards and forwards across that line, negotiate this fantastic piece of archaeology and work around it, ideally. So for me, I've been really lucky in my career. I've been able to work all along the wall variously. I trained at South Shields as a very, very young callow youth. So that's the most easterly fort in terms of the a part, not attached to Hadrian's Wall, but a part of the Hadrian's Wall system in many ways. And also I've been able to, through those commercial pieces of work along bits of the wall in urban Newcastle, where the wall, as it's shown in the show, travels beneath the modern city. So finding bits of the wall in pipe trenches and sewer trenches and all sorts of things, like really, really glamorous things like that. But also out in the kind of central part of Hadrian's Wall, that when you say Hadrian's Wall to people, probably the bit they think of most, that the stunning scenery in Northumberland. Been lucky to work out in areas like that with English Heritage and the National Trust, for example, working on their sites in terms of, on occasion, doing little bits of archaeology, but also helping put in place visitor infrastructure so that people can actually come and visit different parts of the wall and understand it. So for me, this has been a bit like a really, really lovely sort of working at home piece of work for me. I've been able to kind of feel very at home with the archaeology that we did for this show.
The wall looms very large for both Chris and I. We met when we were at uni, and we were at uni in Newcastle. So the wall is the big thing. Like literally our first weekend at uni, as kind of scared first years, we got trooped out onto a bus, driven out to the famous sort of Robin Hood central section of Hadrian's Wall. Shout out to Professor Jim Crow, who fell off the wall trying to explain something to us. And it's it was a major part of our university life. Sort of the study of it, modules in it in all 3 of our years, and I actually ended up doing staying and doing a master's on the Northern Roman frontier, because there's such a history of scholarship, and it is a well-known monument, but there's still so much to find, as proven by the program we've all just watched on Wednesday. It's great, it really is. Sorry, I've got a cat issue.
No, please go. It's so cute. I need to get mine. Mine are sleeping somewhere, so I don't know where they are. So, Rob, in regards to Hadrian's Wall now, what can we do to help preserve it? I mean, it's a wall. It's not. I wouldn't say well looked after, but that's the wrong word. It's not in the best condition in across the wall, because it's so long and far, and people are coming, touching it, probably, you know, doing things whilst they are walking along the wall. How are you able to protect it and preserve it?
It's a really good question. It's kind of tricky, because Hadrian's Wall is kind of famous as it is as a historic monument. It exists in a working landscape. So as Chris was saying, you know, there are quite a lot of lengths of Hadrian's Wall that are under modern cities, you know, the greater Carlisle area, greater Newcastle area. And so there's the kind of protections in place that help us understand and protect the monument there, but it's mostly buried or even fully destroyed. So where it does exist tends to be mostly out in the countryside. But actually in the countryside, you have farmers, you know, who are getting on with their daily lives and business. And so they're often trying to run a working farm. And so sometimes there's a bit of a challenge between preserving our heritage and allowing farmers to get on with their work. And then when we add tourism into it, and climate change, so there's been issues with like landslip and erosion, there's a whole bunch of things. So historic England is always kind of conscious about how we can further protect the monument. And then there are other kind of stakeholder groups involved as well, because Hadrian's Wall being so large is really complicated. So Northumberland National Park, for example, has a lot of land that it owns that Hadrian's Wall runs through. There's the National Trust, which has a very large estate. There's like over 600 private landowners, for example, that own bits of Hadrian's Wall. So anytime you're doing any sort of work on Hadrian's Wall, it takes cooperation and communication between all those different stakeholders. Over the years, as the heritage sector has been cut in terms of its funding, there have been problems. There's been bits that have fallen apart. So one of the things that we've been quite lucky at Newcastle University to have is a National Lottery heritage-funded project, which we call for short WallCAP. It's the Hadrian's Wall Community Archaeology Project. And one of the goals of that project is to involve local communities to help look after the wall. So that will be a whole bunch of things. It's kind of joining us on bits of fieldwork, survey, and excavation, so they can kind of learn the skills that go into investigating and then consolidating and repairing bits of the wall. Sometimes it's interpretation. We can't necessarily do much to help the monument there, but we can better interpret it for visitors. And so getting volunteers involved in that active interpretation, which is actually, it's something that we often get trained to do as archaeologists, but it's a bit mystifying to members of the public. They don't understand how we go from that little piece of Samian ware to like this fully reconstructed bowl. Or
Marcus makes it up. I think we established that earlier. Yeah,
I was listening closely. He said there was a lot of evidence.
You've touched on a really important point, which is that if we don't expose and communicate the methods behind our results, we do look like we are engaged in total BS and just making stuff up. And in fact, I think, what I feel with archaeology is that people want to genuinely intellectually engage with it. I have the sense that the people who are interested in archaeology, they're interested in understanding it on multiple levels, from a, historical, material point of view, all of that stuff. And so if we can then give people those tools to actually say, well, yes, Marcus has taken this tegular and he has told you what barracks looks like, but actually that's because he has access to all this other information which feeds into that. And so all the stuff that we're doing at Newcastle, all the stuff that Rob's doing, it just essentially is about putting some of what we've been privileged enough to learn and to study and actually giving that to people who are intellectually curious, who want to know this stuff for themselves. Because people are clever and people want to know about their history under their feet. And it's our job. Like, I don't think it's our job to stop them from doing that. I think it's our job to allow people to have access to that. And if we don't do that, then we're failing at our job. That sounds very serious. It wasn't meant to sound so serious.
Oh, sorry, please continue, Rob.
I was going to say, I think one of the things that's tricky about Hadrian's Wall, certainly up here in Newcastle or in Northumberland or Cumbria, is that it is a big deal and everyone knows about it, but it's also right in their backyard. And so people are often aware of it, but don't necessarily understand it, or don't really appreciate just how incredible and rare the wall is. And, you know, it's a World Heritage Site. You know, it's considered to be of global significance. And that's fantastic. And so that's one of the things that we often are trying to communicate. And it's easy with something like Hadrian's Wall, which is World Heritage, but I think for all archaeology, it's trying to help people understand that local heritage, because it's really easy to dismiss something in your own backyard, even if it's a stomping great big wall.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was gonna say, some of those things, like, you just become used to it when you kind of lose appreciation, don't you? I mean, there's things that I see every day at church that I might go by and someone else will see it, like, wow, that is beautiful. I'm like, actually, let me look at it again, because I walk past it every day. How can the community actually get involved, especially now with COVID? I imagine that's completely changed the whole format.
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, we still run all sorts of activities for volunteers, but we've had to pivot to digital. So we run all sorts of sessions digitally to talk about like recording techniques, or we're building a huge Hadrian's Wall GIS. So one of the things that people can do is kind of help us populate that GIS by doing.
So I think we should explain GIS for people, Rob, just in case they're not us.
I'm falling guilty. Does someone else want to explain it? I'm conscious how much I'm talking.
Well, we're just talking about geographical information systems. We're talking about like creating things that incorporate the spatial element of data. So that's really important in archaeology.
Lots of maps on a computer that you can click on.
Yeah,
and cool, overlaying the maps and looking at different maps over time and the use of resources in the landscape, and it's great.
But it's also only as good as the information in the computer, as it were. So to make the coolest maps, we need lots of data and information. But often the people that know that information best are those who live locally. So, you know, often we can send a query to our volunteers and they can like go for their daily bit of exercise and go out and check something. But also for those volunteers, you know, because Hadrian's Wall International, there's lots of people I know in America and Canada, Australia, who really love the monument as well and want to somehow be involved, but by dint of living in a foreign country can't always travel. So this is a way for them to participate as well. And actually being able to run things digitally has been fantastic, because it means we can be much more accessible in a way that we can't be if you have to be physically here with your feet on the ground.
And we actually have one of your volunteers in the chat. Hello, Malcolm. He said that, Malcolm Thomas. Yep, you know him, I can see. So he's one of the volunteers here as well. Let's see, question wise. Oh, this is a great question. Adam, I wish, before I even read it, it's like I wish, but so Adam from Theatre of War goes, you know, could the Great British Dig do a series centered on a particular series of sites like Hadrian's Wall? I don't think maybe for this show it would have to be its own thing, because in my mind, that the Great British Dig is you know, being able to travel across, you know, and showing elements with different communities. But how cool would it be to get paid to work on Hadrian's Wall?
Well, ask Rob. That's
true. Rob, you got any jobs going?
I'm impressed that I even have a career, if I'm honest. It's just a big stone wall, but it's great. I mean, certainly there's so much to know that lots of really nerdy archaeologists get very exercised talking about, you know, the thickness of the wall at certain points and what that means. So we're really cool.
It's great, isn't it? Like the idea that there could be spin-off shows from this. Let's say to Channel 4 right now, Channel 4, you've got to fund us for more series. But I've had people coming up online and saying things like, well, I was very disappointed to see that the Great British Dig wasn't like the Great British Bake Off. I would have liked to see everybody trying to excavate a post hole and talking about various different layers within your section. So actually, I think, there's something in that, isn't that? It'd be great. Great British Bake Off version of the Great British Dig.
Who'd get voted off? Who'd get voted out first?
Well, exactly, you would, Jim.
Yeah.
Because you've got a weird background.
If the challenge was carrying a green plastic tray.
You're very good at that. He's very good at that.
You would have bossed that.
That's true. And you did have a wheelbarrow at one point.
At one point, I had a wheelbarrow. Yeah, that got my tray taken away from me.
I mean, just in the face of everybody who thinks we did nothing, Chris and I spent 10 minutes backfilling in that big chunk in Benwell.
That is true.
10 minutes until Chris got an urgent phone call and had to leave.
That happens a lot. Very important.
Do you have one of those apps on your phone, Chris, where it's like an alarm, but it's like a phone, so it looks like someone's calling you?
Yeah, the
So
work.
he's hitting the panic button. They're making me dig.
The work klaxon. Yeah.
Is it linked to your smartwatch? So when your pulse gets a bit too high, it automatically.
Yeah, a brisk run. That's it. Sets it off.
Brilliant. Before I forget, Rob, David Connolly, is saying, would you like 10 free passports? And for anyone who doesn't know, they're these really cool skill passports. And if you want to be an archaeologist or you're interested in archaeology and you're taking part in community excavations or you're a student, it's a great way to document your skills. So there you go, Rob. Sweet, awesome. You got a little deal there.
Thank you very much, David.
Actually, I'll put the link in the description box to the skill passports as well. So if anyone would like to have a look at it, look at the different types of skills you can get from archaeology. As we said before, it's very vast. There's so many different skill sets that you do need. Sorry, I was interrupting Chris, I think. Were you saying something, Chris?
I think in answer to Adam's question as well, though, I think just about the variety, we've worked on the development of the show, as Jim was saying, and actually one of the things I think we feel really passionate about in terms of the format of the Great British Dig and the opportunity it gives is actually the travelling around and showing different parts of the country, and the different archaeology and the different situations in which archaeology exists in people's communities. So to a sense, it would be really cool if I could just work on Hadrian's Wall every week. That would be great, but also I think, to be honest, it has been one of the joys of the series that we've worked on, to be able to move around and do things in different communities with different archaeology in different situations. And I think obviously as the episodes come through and people see them, hopefully that will come across.
I think definitely. It's incredible how well informed the British public is about their history in general. That when I first moved from America, I was gobsmacked that people knew what geophys was, and that was entirely due to shows like Time Team.
Type of Prosecco, isn't it?
Yeah, it's incredible. The British public really does have, I think, in many ways, a really good sense of its history, in more than I think a lot of the public in other countries do. So it's great that you're able to do the Great British Dig, because that's all helping people understand their history.
I just noticed Dave in the chat. Dave Connolly was asking if we're going to come to Scotland. He's based in Scotland, for anyone who doesn't know. It just reminded me of something Chris was saying. We did a lot of the site finding for this series. Because of COVID and everything, we had to pick sites that were logistically a little bit easier, so we aren't as widely spread. People will see as the 4 episodes get aired. We have tried to spread out a bit, but certainly, fingers crossed, if there is a season 2 picked up, we are very, very firmly trying to get into Scotland, get right down into the south, get across into Wales, looking at Northern Ireland, make it a proper a truly great British dig. But yeah, I think we're all quite keen to try and get up and do a couple of sites in Scotland if we can. So it's it's fantastic.
I absolutely agree, Jim. Apart from wanting to go and dig in Scotland, it's you can't call something the Great British Dig and then not do that. But I think we have done that to an extent in that we've really focused on the Midlands and the North in a way that you don't often see. And I'm quite proud of that, because it's been only 4 episodes, and so there's never going to be total coverage with 4 episodes, but we've done a great job of showing that cultural heritage and archaeology are really kind of not things that just belong to, dare I say it, the southeast and the southwest of England.
There's more than just Stonehenge and Orkney. There's things in between.
There's Orkney as well, of course, but
yeah. Well, I think what we made a very, very conscious effort to do, knowing that the geographic spread might be a bit problematic, was we tried to make sure that there was a really good chronological spread of the sites that we looked at. And we really wanted to sort of kick off with Hadrian's Wall as this statement of like big Roman archaeology in a place that most of us who were core to the archaeology team really love and have done a lot of work. So that was sort of the aim there.
Also, do you have a wish list of sites you want to visit?
Yeah, I'm sure we do. I'd love to dig up some more modern military sites. I'm really interested in that at the moment. If we could find King Arthur, I think that'd make quite a good TV episode.
Jim, what are you saying? What are you doing? Just think about the words that are coming out of your mouth right now.
Thought I'd get a rise, yeah.
Whoops. I'm sorry, after saying that, my dog has leapt up and knocked my camera over. So it's made me look a total fool.
We actually had a few comments regarding the show. Really nice comments here, both from Barbara and Delby. And, Barbara goes on to say that, she loved the show and how the history was explained in bite-sized levels. So it was, informative, but then not too much where it was, the use of language was too maybe hard to digest. So she really enjoyed that. And as the viewer, it was engaging. And I certainly felt that you were asking questions from the experts. So being able to communicate with each other. And then interestingly, and this is something I agree with, I love the statement from Delby, who said, can't imagine how so many people from the southern parts of the Roman Empire came over to the North Britain, such as Hadrian's Wall. And I'm so glad that we mentioned it a little bit. And maybe we could have gone into more depth about so much, but it was mentioned in the episode. I think that was great. Anything to add, actually, Rob, in regards to that, into the migration?
Yeah, what's incredible is we have a ton of evidence for that sort of movement. So, just from 1 fort alone at South Shields, which was mentioned earlier, we have 2 really impressive tombstones that kind of really signal the diversity of population. So we have one tombstone from a chap named Victor, known as affectionately as Victor the Moor, who was a former slave of a cavalry trooper who was freed. And it's his kind of former master who erected the tombstone for him. And it's a big, fancy tombstone. It would have cost quite a bit. And the inscription as well suggests that they were very close and had some sort of intimate relationship. The level of intimacy is a bit debated, but they were, certainly extremely close friends at the very least. And then from the same site, another really expensive and flash tombstone is to a woman named Regina, who's said to be of the Catavolani tribe, so from the south, kind of Bedfordshire, Essex, kind of maybe into Rutland. So she's a southern Briton. She herself was also a slave, but she was freed and married her master, Barates, who was from Palmyra. And so just in those 2 tombstones, we have 3 people who are not local at all to Hadrian's Wall that are making up this really cosmopolitan population. That in some cases, you could say Hadrian's Wall was probably a more diverse population than we've ever had across the north of England, because people have come from all across the Roman Empire. Probably more diverse than it is today, in fact. With units from Africa, units from the Near East, units from Germany, units from Spain, units from Gaul. And then, of course, local Britons who are also contributing to those communities.
Brilliant. And another question from Delby. Was Antonio or Antone Wall built by the same people? Can you say, is there any evidence?
That's a yes and no. Depends on your level of zooming in and out. The Antonine Wall is built by the Romans, but the kind of hint there is in the name. So Hadrian's Wall was built under the orders of the Emperor Hadrian. And after he died, the next emperor was Antoninus Pius. And so he's the one who said, nope, we're going to march north, and I want you to build another wall. And actually, that also is a World Heritage Site. It's shorter, and it wasn't ever built in stone, and so it doesn't survive as well as Hadrian's Wall. But some of the soldiers that were on Hadrian's Wall were pushed further north to help build the Antonine Wall and to help garrison it for about 20 years. And then the Romans decided this wasn't such a good idea, and they retreated back south to Hadrian's Wall.
I'm curious, how was the condition of that wall?
Well, as you can imagine, it's built basically from Edinburgh to Glasgow. So it's in the most populated area of Scotland, kind of that central belt of Scotland. So there's not a lot of it that is upstanding relative to Hadrian's Wall. And it's also, only about half the length of Hadrian's Wall. So it's both shorter and built in turf. But there are some really cool locations like Seabags Wood, where you can see these, really huge earth embankments. And it's really comparable to like the big hill forts that we'll often see on television, but it's just one big bank in a big ditch. But there are places with forts that you can see on the ground that are laid out. In many ways, it's really similar to Hadrian's Wall. Arguably, the scenery is even more dramatic, if I'm honest, that, you've got the highlands that you can see to the north of you. So if you can, really, you should visit both walls, and then you can decide for yourself which one's better. Clearly Hadrian's, but you should still visit both walls before you make that.
I love it. For our viewers, if you have any more questions, please put them in. We've been going for an hour and a half, so we're going to be wrapping it up soon. So if you have any burning questions about episode 1, quickly type them in now. And anything for Rob about Hadrian's Wall, now is your chance. I'll let that go for a few more moments. Let me check while I'm going through.
You really have to be careful with asking questions about Hadrian's Wall. They can get really train spotty.
The thing is with how do you find having the opportunity and kind of like the role to be one of many people who are able to talk about Hadrian's Wall and then to educate the public about it? It's awesome, but it's very challenging. I feel like it's quite a lot on your shoulders there to be able to articulate information in such a way for the public.
I love it, but also it's not all the pressure on me. And one of the things that's great about Hadrian's Wall is there's a tradition of communicating and sharing the archaeology of the wall with the public. So in 1849, a local reverend, John Collingwood Bruce, he created this tradition called the Pilgrimage of Hadrian's Wall. And so every 10 years, there is a pilgrimage along Hadrian's Wall with the express purpose of getting members of the public to visit the sites and see like the latest excavations and hear about the newest discoveries and interpretations. So for more than 150 years, there's been this tradition of sharing the archaeology with the public and being able to communicate how great it is. And that's really quite exceptional that it started so early. And that cycle of every 10 years is also created like in modern parlance, I suppose, like a research framework, in the sense that, we kind of have every 10 years there's a review of what's been found, what does this mean, how is it interpreted, how does this change the way we go forward, how does it change conditions that local planners put on applications that commercial archaeologists look for. So, we're very lucky in that sense. And because there's that tradition, that's one of the things I always liked about Hadrian's Wall studies, that it's baked into the DNA is this expectation that, it's not just for us as professionals, it's part of the public, and the public wants to know more, and we should communicate that. And that's awesome.
And did you watch the show, Rob?
I did, yeah. Oh, yeah, okay. I like seeing friends and people I know.
And what did you think about it?
I quite liked it. I was really impressed with Hugh in the sense that he seemed to get the balance right. And also, dare I say it, and no offense to Jim, Marcus, and Chris, but it was nice that there was such a present female cast, because I know there are lots of women in archaeology, but if you were to look at telly, that's not always represented. So I thought that was really nice to see.
Yeah, there's I don't know where this kind of things come from, this idea that all archaeologists are white men with beards.
It's a mystery.
Really? No, you have beards.
Bit of a disaster, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, Tash and Chloe, you're really letting the whole panel down, to be honest.
Look, I mean, I've been playing with the new Zoom function where you can put moustaches on, and to be honest, I'm for it. So I'm not great for representation, because all I want is a nice tash. Like, not a tash, that's the wrong thing to say, isn't it? A nice moustache. Tash is already lovely.
Maybe you could bring back the soul patch, Chloe.
No. I'd like a little, one of the little curly ones.
A Poirot.
Yeah, a Poirot.
Ooh, if we get a second series, Jim. Yeah.
I have to shave my facial hair in some exciting fashion every episode.
We have actually, in regards to Hugh, there's quite a few questions that came in. It'd be quite nice actually to mention them. This one's from Past Preservers. What was it like working with Hugh? Often celebrity presenters are criticised, but he seemed very engaged.
Me. I'm going to answer
Go on,
this.
then. Go on.
Okay, he's amazing. So, okay, Hugh is really interesting because he has a kind of long-term interest in all this stuff. And he actually did, I think it was geography. And I was even looking at going and doing something like a PhD in it. And then he did really well in the Edinburgh Fringe. And he was like, yeah, no, I think I'll do that instead, which fair enough, Hugh, fair enough. But he, to work with him, he just genuinely wanted to know. And the thing that always strikes me about Hugh, and I don't know if you agree with this, Tash, but I think you will, like, we're told, Hugh, I want you to go and answer and ask them these questions about what they're doing, so that we can, convey what they're doing. And he'll look at the questions and he'll go, oh, yeah, that's great. And then he'll just come up and he'll ask you something totally out of left field, which is from his own interest, and totally blindside you and get a much more interesting answer, actually, out of it. And so my take on working with Hugh Dennis is that it's just a pleasure to work with someone who is genuinely interested in what you do for a living. Because, like, from a lot of perspectives, what I do for a living is quite boring. So to have a big name celebrity who's on all those big TV shows and Mock the Week and everything, kind of wanting to know more, it's deeply flattering, isn't it?
It was an absolute pleasure working with him. You're right. It was genuine enthusiasm. It was real. So cameras are there when you're talking to him anyway, and you're conveying the message. Marcus, how was it? Because there is a scene when you're showing him the models. How was it to show him all that stuff? Because obviously for him, that's the first time as well.
Yeah, no, it's as you mentioned, he's very interested. I don't know, his sense of humor really makes me laugh all the time, so we have to do a few more takes than necessary, I think. Because he'll just like curveball you with something and you'll just go, what? But yeah, no, he's really easy to chat with and stuff. It's really good to be able to share these things with him. So we generally have a sit down and I show him the stuff that I've been hastily building on site from in the few days that we've had to do it. And he's very receptive and a very nice and very funny guy. Yeah, very good.
And he did trowel and shovel as well. He was in the
little bit. Come on.
Yeah, he jumped in.
Yeah.
He did jump in. But he was only not there as much as us. So at least when he came, he was generally enthused by what we were doing, and he was asking us questions.
Yeah.
And
as a viewer, it didn't seem like he was putting out lines to camera. Like it came across that he was actually asking questions. And in thinking about what he was seeing, and not just like, you know, cut, review the script, end scene, move on to the next bit. So it helped keep it feel real as a viewer, I thought.
That it's great because that's a reflection of because we weren't on camera other than the aforementioned tray carrying, but watching it being filmed was a really interesting experience as well, watching Hugh talk to you two and Richard, and it does seem like he's trusted to really think on his feet. And yes, like you say, Chloe, he gets given a script and he throws it out, but he's able to do that. And they trust him to do that as part of the production. They trust him to engage, to understand, and to sort of help find the best angle to illustrate the story. He was such good fun, and I think he's really carried through the final product.
I'd also like to add a very personal thing, which is that he's a very nice man. And during the filming of that first episode in Benwell, like the people who are here know this, but like I had some really bad news from home and everything was terrible. And, you know, he was just a very, very sort of kind and supportive person to have around that. And I just, you know, I think that's very rare, actually, in kind of people who you meet who are very much in the public eye. That's a very difficult place to be. And I think it would be quite self-protective to just remove yourself and not interact with people. But the way he interacted with all of us, whether we be the people who are on camera, people who are the experts behind the camera, like Jim and Chris and Marcus, well, Marcus is both, or the members of the public, you know, that he gave everybody his equal time. And I think, like, without sounding like some kind of weirdo mega fan that's going to stalk him, I think that was amazing, you know, and I couldn't wish for a better person to work with. So if anyone's wondering what he's actually like, yeah, he's as nice as he seems, basically. Sorry about my dog barking in the background, if you can hear that.
No, I think, you know, you just hit the nail on the head there. Like, it was honestly an absolute pleasure working with everyone on the project. It really was. And yeah, everyone, even the crew, even, you know, everyone from Strawberry Blonde. It was so much fun. It really
even
was.
The PB people, yeah.
They're going to take that now, aren't they? They're going to cut that bit and they're going to play it over and over again. They're like, this, Tash, that's what you said.
But I want to make a massive shout out to all those guys, actually. So when you're watching a show, you know, the ones you don't see are all the people behind the cameras, the people who are kind of thinking about the show, who are making it happen. And they're amazing, and they're there doing that, but they're also very sneaky, and they create drinking games about what to look for when you watch it. And I think the one they did for the first show was every time you see somebody running for something, even though it's been in the ground for thousands of years. So, you know, shout out to all the snarky but very much fun people that actually filmed everything we were doing.
And who listened to us as well. Like they, you know, it was a conversation we're able to work around. Well, mostly for Jim and Chris, that is, anyway, with them. Okay, a few last questions, and then that'll be it, I'm afraid. Let's quickly go. More statements. Oh, I actually quite like this. I don't know if I should say it, but I will anyway. This is Alex. When Rob was talking earlier, he goes, "What do you think? Can we call the Hadrian's Wall like the Great British Wall and draw an analogy with the Great Wall of China?"
There actually is a partnership between Hadrian's Wall and the Great Wall of China that I've been involved with over the past couple of years, and actually it's really rather humbling because their archaeologists have recorded like 25,000 kilometers of length of the Great Wall of China, and our wall just isn't really that big by comparison. Not that it's the size of the wall that matters. Yeah, but theirs is better preserved as well. So there's a quality argument that could be made, if I'm honest.
I'm amazed you've got through all of these questions without mentioning Game of Thrones yet. I really am.
We can talk about that if you like.
I feel like he has to now, Jim. You said it.
Here I would lower the tone, that's all.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, I do it all the time, but you know, you don't need to suffer from it.
Okay. This is a good point. So Malcolm did ask, how many days were you digging for? As it was edited, like it seemed, oh no. It didn't take the famous 3 days. Nothing takes 3 days. I learned that the hard way when I got my first job. I was like, why am I still here? I've been here for 16 weeks. We were filming for 5 days, right? And I think the team were there for 6 or 7 days.
Yeah,
6.5. Yeah,
6.5.
5 days of actual digging. We had a setup sort of half day and then a full day backfill at the end. So that was the full program.
We really did put everyone's gardens back together.
Yes, we did. Yeah, there was a very sad moment at the end after the party when all the TV crew packed up and drove off, and then we just you could know that they're looking in their rear view mirrors and they could just see us lot stood there still sadly holding shovels, knowing we had a full day of backfilling to go. But it's part of the job.
Sorry, I was just reading the comment. I was just like, what's this comment?
that was an awful silence, wasn't it? That was a laden silence.
Yeah, it was like, oh, have I said something really offensive there? Everyone's just
it made your light-hearted comment sound so terrible.
No.
Yeah, it gave it some real gravity, didn't it? Oh dear.
Yeah.
But I must admit, Jim, I did feel bad that we couldn't be there for the backfilling because we would go.
Couldn't be there.
Yeah,
couldn't be there
for
yeah,
it.
no, what a shame. I couldn't. It's the worst part.
I would like to state that I did backfilling. Chris and I did at least 20 minutes of backfilling.
Yeah.
In the whole 4 episodes.
Yeah.
I'd like there's a question from David Connolly, which is which character would Jim be in Game of Thrones? And I've never watched Game of Thrones, but I'm so much on social media that I feel like I know it. So now I kind of want to know the answer.
Fine, this will be the last one. This is the last time you're going to be speaking tonight, Jim. Make it good.
Well, I definitely want to be a Stark because I'm Northern like Sean Bean, but I'm clearly not cool enough to be Sean Bean. So
you're
like some kind of
thing.
Yeah, I'm some kind of forgotten Stark cousin who just loiters in back of shot holding a green tray.
You can't be Sean Bean because you're still alive after the show.
That's true. Yeah. Oh, spoilers, Chris. Game of Thrones spoilers.
Yeah. You don't know what might happen in like episode 4. Are we all going to be surrounding Jim's corpse?
Yeah. Well, stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you all today, but we have to end it somewhere. So why not end it on that note?
Brilliant. All the intellectual chat, and this is how we're finishing. Great.
We're going to end somewhere, so maybe it's good. It just shows us this going. No, it's not. So everyone who is watching right now, we will be live again next week. We'll be speaking with some other guests who were on the show on and off screen. So we'll see you all then. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe button, all of those functions. And the websites for everybody's projects are in the description below. So please check them out. And anything to say before we go, everyone? Everyone's happy? You're happy you said stuff that you liked? Yes. Rob, anything to add before we go about WallCAP?
Just check us out online.
Perfect. I like that. So on that note, everybody, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next week. Bye.
Thank you.